our first Monday lecture, which happens to coincide with Continuing Revolution, which is our annual conference for young adult friends and their friends, friends who are interested in being fellow travelers with friends and friends from all over the world, different countries I've been told, including Rwanda and Texas, as it was announced the other day. So the reason I'm introducing this evening is because we are being live streamed. My name is John Meyer. I'm the education coordinator at Pendle Hill, and it's so great to welcome you all, some of you back and some of you for the first time, to Continuing Revolution and your exploration this week of the testimony, Friends Peace testimony, in its varieties of ways of showing up. And as those of you who view from home know, I always give the commercial interlude before there is a lude to enter. We will not be having our first Monday lecture in July because so many of us will be at Friends General Conference, and it's close to the 4th of July and many people will be away, so we take a month off. But in August, I'm very happy to announce on August 7th, we will be having Sarah Azaransky as our lecturer. Sarah is a professor. She is studying at and teaching at Union Theological Seminary. She's published a number of books, including one a few years ago on Pauli Murray. Some of you may have seen in the bookstore the new biography of Pauli Murray. Jane Crow, fascinating woman who was friends with Eleanor Roosevelt, and was a real powerful force for change in the civil rights movement before it became recognized more widely in the American public. This book that she has just published in June is called This Worldwide Struggle, Religion and the International Roots of the Civil Rights Movement. And it documents a number of activists from the United States who are active Christians in the U.S. Of African American descent, who were early students of the Fellowship of Reconciliation, Bayard Rustin very prominently among them, who traveled around the world and were interested in the liberation movements that were incipient in the post-war years, post-World War II years in Asia and Africa in particular, traveled the world, visited Gandhi, and expanded their interreligious dialogue. They were largely active with the YMCA and the YWCA as well. And a worldwide interreligious, interfaith network of liberation was created that gave a lot of impetus and definitely the nonviolent direct action strategies through these activists that traveled the world to connect Mahatma Gandhi, who died in 1948, and the emerging Martin Luther King in about 1955 and 56 as leaders. So these are the transmission of that is what she's going to be talking about, 7:30 to 9 on August 7th. So we'll look forward to seeing you there. Greetings to our friends here. We have about 46 folks from around the country and the globe. We're very glad you're here, and we're glad those of you who are here from our remote learning locations. So I'd like to introduce the leader of this, one of the co-leaders, Katrina McQuail, and her colleague, Amy Grulich, who've been planning this event for all of this past year. Katrina hails from Canada. You'll see more of her at Friends General Conference Summer Gathering, where she will finish chewing all of the big bites she's taken off, not only co-clerking this gathering, but co-clerking the summer gathering this year, as well as running the family farm, or at least helping out extraordinarily with her family farm in Ontario. So thank you for being with us, and she will introduce our speaker for this evening.
Thank you. So I have the pleasure, probably about 14, but I'll stick to his bio. Greg is a lifelong Quaker and still holds his membership in Columbia, Missouri Friends Meeting of Illinois Yearly Meeting. He now attends First Friends Meeting in Greensboro, North Carolina, where he lives with his wife, Jen Bonsall, and their infant daughter, Margaret Ray Bonsall, who will be joining us. Greg is dedicated and passionate about Quaker service and the role that young adult friends have in its formation and actualization, which led him to be a founding board member of the Quaker Voluntary Service and is working in campus ministries. Greg will talk about his journey as a Quaker with a disability and coming to terms with how to live in an ableist world. He will also discuss how his journey has led him to be involved in intersectional activism throughout his adult life, working towards peace in his communities. In the past few years, Greg has served as a work camp coordinator at William Penn House, assistant coordinator of the Young Adult Leadership Development Program here at Pendle Hill, acquired his Master's of Divinity from Princeton Theological Seminary, and served in ministry with Friends Center at Guilford College. So we look forward to his talk tonight on becoming whole inwardly and outwardly.
Greg will speak out of the silence, so let us settle into a period of worship.
Thank you, John and Katrina. So part one, my story. Growing up with a disability in Wheeler, Missouri was a hard experience. When I opened my mouth, people would assume I was less than intelligent. All I wanted was to fit in and not have a speech impediment. I didn't want to be me. I wanted to be someone different. I can remember clearly crying at night when I was around 8 or 9. I would ask my mom, why me? What did I do wrong? Why did God do this to me? I wanted to know what I did to deserve a speech impediment. I didn't feel whole. Tonight I will talk about this lifelong journey towards wholeness inwardly and outwardly. First, I will talk about the inward journey and learning to be whole as a disabled person in a ableist world. Then I will talk about my outward journey through anti-oppression work in my community. And lastly, I will share some thoughts about Quakerism and what I have learned on the journey. I have always had a difficult relationship with God. For a long time, I tried to dissociate myself from Christianity. Growing up on the northern edge of the Bible Belt, I heard a lot of talk about God, Christ, and perfection. As if perfection was the third part of the Trinity instead of the Holy Spirit. I asked why I should follow a God, a Christ who would coach me with a disability. As a kid, I treated my speech impediment as something other than a part of my whole self. I saw it as a detriment that will keep me from succeeding. That thinking was partly due to a misdiagnosis early in life. Throughout elementary school, doctors predicted that I would go out of my speech impediment by high school. To say the least, I could not wait until high school. Around the same time, I saw a Full House episode where two teenage girls, DJ and Kimmy, were talking about one of DJ's cousins, Steve, coming back to visit. Steve was supposed to be nerdy looking, or as Kimmy called him, a geek burger with cheese, with glasses, braces, and zits. Yet, when they opened the door, he had no glasses, nice teeth, and clear skin. The two girls were shocked that he was hot. And as the actor was Colt Cameron, who was one of the more attractive young actors in the late 80s. The girls asked what happened to him. He explained that he now had contacts. The braces came off, and finally the zits just cleared up. Looking back on that scene, the character Steve said, they all cleared about it. They all cleared up. Isn't nature great? But for years, I remembered it incorrectly. In my memory, Steve said, one morning I woke up and bam, the zits were gone. I think misimprint in my mind. It stuck in my mind that way. I used to dream that one day I would wake up and find that my speech impediment was totally gone, like Cook Cameron sits. I wished for that day to come. Then I would be more accepted by my high school peers and maybe be able to get a date. But that day never came. I felt disappointed as high school went by and my speech impediment hung on like unwanted zits. The place I found refuge was at my meeting I grew up in, Columbia Friends Meeting. Like other Friends meetings in small college towns, it was rather small. A good size attendance would be 20 or 30 people. Even this, we gathered here today would be more than I would see most Sundays. And they tended to be older, mostly former college professors. And I were usually the only youth my age. They always treated me as a full person as I passed my speech impediment. When I reached high school age, I faithfully attended young friends conferences and my yearly meeting. There, I experienced acceptance for the first time among my peers. I felt loved like I did in my family and in my Quaker meeting. Something I never felt in my school. I became addicted to Quaker high school gathering. I started traveling beyond my yearly meeting to other youth gathering in nearby yearly meetings. I would spend hours on buses just to spend a weekend where people would see me as a whole person instead of just seeing my speech impediment. Despite becoming more involved in my faith community, I still felt estranged from God. I definitely always felt God's presence in my life, but I continued to wrestle with how to understand God and God's relationship to what I felt was my incompleteness. I felt abandoned by God. Then I went to college. During my first year, I joined the planning committee for Disability Awareness Month. Through being on the planning committee, I finally realized I had a disability. Not just a inconvenient that would magically go away one morning like Cook Cameron says. It took me another decade to ultimately accept myself as being a disabled person and to see myself as whole. For most of my life, I thought the cure to my incomplete sense of self was romantic love. They were probably due to my love of romantic movies. Number one being the classic When Harry Met Sally. Then my now wife Jen and I started dating in 2011 and it became intense right away. We went on a 6-week road trip after only dating 6 weeks. I finally found that love I was searching for in my relationship with Jen, yet the self-hate was still there. It did not disappear magically like this. Also, about the same time, I felt God's calling to go to seminary. I landed at Princeton Theological Seminary. There, I struggled with my relationship with God. I desperately wanted to find a way to justify my disability to repair this relationship. For a while, I thought I could reason it away as a gift from God. In a sense, I've always been able to know who my friends were by how they treated me. But a wise mentor once asked me, "Do you really believe that?" I had to say no. Once again, I was lost and angry. Around the same time, I was talking with a classmate about grades we had received. This classmate always had insightful feedback to give and really seemed to understand the text we were reading in the class. On the other hand, I always felt unprepared for class discussion, confused about the reading. Yet, in talking with him, I had received a higher grade for our final paper. I thought to myself, wow, how could I get a higher grade than him? He is smart. That thought made me realize for the first time in my life that I was in fact intelligent. People always told me I was intelligent, but I never believed it myself. That was how deep the ableism was in myself. I somehow thought my whole life I was lucky to get relatively good grades, then to go to a good liberal arts college, and then go to a seminary for a master's degree. Then during my last semester at seminary, I took a class called Sexuality and the Christian Party. Through the class, I dealt with my anger toward God about my disability. I actually confronted my feelings of loneliness and abandonment by God. For the final paper in the class, I read Disabled God by Nicely Eastling. I realized that the Savior I worship was disabled too. Eastling writes in a book, The Disabled God repudiates the conception of disability as a consequence of individual sin. Our bodies are not artifacts of sin, original or otherwise. Our bodies participate in the Emmanuel Dia, not in spite of our impairment and contingencies, but through them. In the Gospel of John, there is a scene after the crucifixion and resurrection with the apostle Thomas. At this, at this time in the Gospel, except for Thomas, all of the apostles had already encountered Christ resurrected. But Thomas hadn't. He didn't believe the others. He said he would only believe when he saw Jesus with his own eyes and touched the wound Jesus had sustained on the cross. Jesus appealed to Thomas and allowed him to touch his wounds. This scene is known as Starting Thomas, and this story is more often used to preach the week after Easter about the virtues of believing without seeing. Yet, we reading this story through the lens of Eastling's book, I see the scene in a completely new way. I realize that my conception of a perfect God, a perfect Christ revolts. Christ could have came back perfect, but he didn't. Instead, he bore the wounds he had suffered on the cross. He came back in a disabled body. Through this lens, I found that my disability is not a hindrance to the kingdom of God, but a part of my whole being created by God. I am indeed made in the image of God, as it is written in Genesis 1. I won't say I am completely whole. I look at my life as a work in progress, and I realize I have yet to become whole. Maybe I will never become fully whole because I am a disabled person living in a disabled world. But I'm definitely becoming whole as I go on this journey, and I'm becoming more at peace as a disabled person. Part 2, outwardly. This journey alone to accept myself has taught me a lot about the purposefulness of ableism in our country, about how people with disability are still treated largely as sources for inspiration and pity. So, for example, how many people here know of Helen Keller, who became blind and deaf at a young age? So, the next. Okay, how many know of the name of our teacher? Anne Sullivan. Okay, how many of you know she was the first blind deaf person to own a BA? Go to the next slide. She graduated from Radcliffe College in 1904. Okay, anyone know? So 2 people knew she had a BA. So how many people know that she was one of the founders of ACLU? Oh, well, most people knew that. We learned about Helen Keller and how teacher Anne Sullivan helped her when she was young. But that is where most people's knowledge of Helen ends. Our society wants disabled people to inspire us, not challenge us. Helen Keller was routinely criticized in her adult life for her socialist views by people inspired by her early life. She once wrote about an editor who had criticized her. At that time, the compliment he paid me was so generous that I pledged to remember them. But now that I have come out for socialism, it reminds me and the public that I am blind and deaf and especially liable to error. Having a disability and facing discrimination, I made me more keenly aware of injustices and oppression other people face to factors such as gender identity, race, and sexuality. But it has been a whole nother journey to really understand how to work toward justice and solidarity. The journey started when I went to the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. Just one state from where Cody was when he went to Stony Rock. Um, Another band of the Lakota people. At age 15, after spending 2 weeks there, I wanted to give back to the Lakota people who have been so hospitable. They started a 10-year project of raising money with other Quaker to help with building and rehabbing houses on their land. Yet looking back at how I describe my work in the early years of this project, I was using the right savior model instead of acting as a ally. The experience helped to explore. The experience did help me to see a different reality of life in the country and help start my journey toward working for justice and peace. But the main obstacle for me in the journey from the beginning has been fully understanding how much privilege I have. Because growing up, I often felt alone at school and felt like other children of all genders and races would put me down. And even kids with disabilities would too. Then in college, I would push back against conversation around privilege among my white peers, especially my male white peers, because I thought that they were erasing part of my identity as someone with a disability and ignoring my experiences with ableism. Based on my experience at that time, any privilege I would have must have went out the window when I opened my mouth to speak. Finally, several years ago, I learned about intersectionality, the idea of intersections between forms and systems of oppression, domination, or discrimination. It was coined by Kimberly Williams Crenshaw, who is a law professor at UCLA. When she was a college student herself, she noted that the role of black women could not be talked about without considering both the gender and race. This concept has helped me to better see the ways I am privileged and how that is balanced with my disability. I am a cis white Northern American male who is Christian and upper middle class. These identity bring me a lot of privilege in the world. My disability still is part of who I am, but it does not negate my privilege entirely. I can move through the world relatively easily. At the same time, a very real fact that I do face discrimination still due to my speech impediment, but the discrimination is minor due to discrimination that my friends of color, uh, my non-binary friends, my undocumented friends face on a daily basis. At seminary, I have a great cohort of peers where we talked about privilege and white supremacy. The cohort challenged me to think more deeply about my own privilege and how I could use my privilege to work for greater justice for people in my community. We took classes on liberation theology, critical race theory, which deepened our conversation and challenged us to think deeper about oppression and privilege, especially at the wealthiest seminary in the world. We jailed from our backgrounds. Students, we were made up of people from different ability, gender identity, races, and class background. They work My work instead has continued past seminary. In Greensboro, I've been involved in learning more about racism and police brutality in my community and our Guilford College campus, where I've been working for the past 3 years. I've tried to work with supporting different student initiatives, going to training on racism and discrimination, uh, uh, and trainings on LGBTQ issues. So, part of the work has been lonely, hard, and important. It is just to show up and just to be in solidarity with people. There is a power in numbers. Other time the work is to go and set up and listen alone. And the work is also about everyday life for me. What kind of businesses do I support with my money? What events do I go to? What shows do I watch on TV? How do these decisions support people of color, women, immigrants, undocumented people, people with disability, LGBTQ communities? Um, In the journey of working for justice and solidarity, I've realized that the, the, the varied ways that white supremacy invades our society, that isolates ourselves from our communities and communities from each other. White supremacy tells us that perfect white bodies are what are the norm, what is desirable in our culture. Looking back on my own journey toward wholeness, white supremacy told me from a young age that I was not a whole person because of my disabilities. After the boat of Margaret Ray, we got here. Hi, Margaret Ray. There she is. For the people watching online who haven't my wonderful daughter Margaret Way. Here is a picture of her from yesterday. I've been less active outwardly, but Jen and I have been surviving to raise her in a anti-abusive way. I must say we can as two white parents who ourselves grew up in mostly white, if not all white spaces. The biggest thing for me is to make sure that Margaret Way interact with people of color on a daily basis, which wasn't my reality at all, especially until I went to school. Her child care provider is a good friend who is a black man. They, in the other ways, um, we try not to hold up rightness and normative, and that require intentionality even in small ways. And Jen is better at this than I am. The other day, Jen was reading a book that named the colors of different animals like blue dog. Then on the last page, a white teacher appears, and the book just says teacher, but Jin adds the word white in reading the book like the white teacher says. Um, the work is ongoing. I realize there is a lot more work to becoming heard outwardly. In some way, I will always support her persons up constantly, and I would definitely have her positive thoughts. It is hard not to, but I want to actively work towards dismantling a person through mindful living in a hope that the different community I am a part of can work together uh, towards being, becoming whole again. Part 3. How this relates to Quakerism. In this part, I want to talk about the journey it has taught me about Quakerism and the future of Quakerism as I see it. As I mentioned before, my home friends meeting was a safe place because they saw past my disability, but they didn't even recognize it. My faith community avoided the D word, as if noticing that I had a disability were going to tip me off to the fact that I did have a disability or that it was rude. In not acknowledging my disability, my loving and supporting community were making it more difficult to be in a relationship with God and thus with the whole meeting. We Quakers sometimes get too caught up in the testimony of equality that we actively ignore the diversity among us, or which we continue harmful stereotype that leads to oppression. For me, the testimony of equality is more about accepting people as they are in the community than the whole community being exactly the same. I am not the same as a able-bodied person, but it does not make me any less of a active participant in my Quaker meeting. Our meetings will continue to be homogeneous if we act like we are a homogeneous people, or immediately assume that people who look, sound, act different will not fit into our meetings. How do we set up meeting for worship for disabled people? How do we welcome people of color and not make immediate assumptions about what they will want or not want in the worship? Instead of acting like silence is only desired by white people, how can we welcome a young adult and not assume they will be too busy or too immature to take on roles within the meeting? I could go on with these questions for a long time. In this moment of history, in the era of Trump, people are searching for what Quakerism has to offer. They would find us if only we wanted to be found. If we were more visible and more welcoming. In that way, I think we need to actively disregard the unwritten rules that I kept our meeting so rigid that sometimes I wonder if we are actually having a space that the Holy Spirit can come into. Instead, we need to work on providing a space for the community to gather, to worship and to worship the Holy Spirit and await leadings. For example, Freedom Friend Church in Salem, Oregon offers people the opportunity to write, read, even play video games, as long as they do not bother other people. The rule is whatever helps you listen to God, so long as it doesn't distract someone else from listening. Because of the space they are creating for people to enter into worship, many disabled people are drawn to the meeting, especially people with varied developmental disabilities. For many, silent and not always a welcoming and inclusive space. There are people for whom sitting still and quiet for 5 minutes is not possible, much less an entire hour. Does that make them any less children of God? Make them less worthy to be Quakers? For myself, even though I don't have a more physical disability, I still visit constantly during long periods of silence. And I know fully able-bodied people who are pretty trained to sit still for an hour. Do we only hear God when we sit in absolute silence and not move an inch? Had that ever been true? What do our body have to do with our worship? What role should they play in how we relate to God? Let's remember George Fox had a vision for a people to be gathered hiking up Pendle Hill. Are they ways of maintaining the essence of our worship and allowing people to be more about of our Holy Communion together so that we can follow the diversity of God's kingdom here on earth. We as Quaker need to embark on the journey to become whole, and we won't really advance on the journey if our meetings are homogeneous and unwilling to support people's needs or even welcome new people in who do not conform to our vision of what Quaker should look like or act like. People are desperately looking for what we have to offer, a deeper connectedness to God and to each other. Frankly, I know Quakers are desperately looking for what we have to offer. Are we ready to change and be changed? Are we ready to work towards wholeness inwardly and outwardly? It is not an easy journey. I know from experience, but it can be done. It's absolutely necessary. The good news, we can and must do this as a community. As a disabled Christian Quaker, I worship a disabled Christ who has shown me that loving my neighbors is one of the greatest commandments. I want to have my faith community reflect that commandment in every way we can. Again, we aren't there yet. We have a lot of work to do, but we can always work towards that journey, go on that journey together toward wholeness. This journey is important, it's imperative, because it will lead us into building the kingdom of God here on earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg. Do you have enough water in there, or would you like some more?
No, I got enough.
Okay. It's our custom to take some time for reflection and comments or questions. Since we are recording this or live, we're both recording and live streaming it. I'd ask folks if they're going to ask a question to hold the microphone just the way I'm doing it, kind of like a lollipop right on your chin, right below your lips. So let's give Greg a hand again while we think of those questions we want to ask. There's lots to chew on there. Do friends have questions? Maybe we want to take some time.
I really appreciate the idea that we don't have to be sitting still to connect with God or open ourselves up to God. And you mentioned one example of a meeting that you knew of that was doing more creative type of worship. Do you have other examples or other things you've seen in your travels of good practices that do make our spaces more welcoming and to each other and to God?
Yes, my friend is the pastor of New Garden friends meeting in Greensboro, Margaret Webb. And when she went there, she, her and basically the existent pastor, she has another title, but they started bringing the kids into silent meeting instead of always having them outside of meeting. They set up a rug up in front near where near the podium, and the kids play the whole time through the whole service. A semi-program meeting, so 30 minutes of reading sermon songs, and then 30 minutes of silence. And Margaret herself has incorporated children books into part of the readings. So she will have several readings. One usually is a Bible verse, but one is always at least part of a children book. So I think that is another way to welcome in the diversity of God's kingdom. Let's stop expelling kids from our worship and welcome them in. Yeah. And on the ground with the kids are parents or child care workers who play with the kids during worship, and they are toys. And sometimes I wish I could. It would be possible for me to play with a toy. I known people who I done to say worship. I think that is in Quaker meetings, and that is something we use at Guildford College, and we also at Guildford I use Labyrinth. So they are different. They are stuff we can draw on from different traditions that work well with our style of worship too.
I guess my question, you did mention at some point that you were lonely. It seems to me that many people who are oppressed or discriminated against have groups that they're with, women or various races. But you had a disability? Okay, I'll just keep going. A disability that more or less made you very unique. And did you find ever that was a challenge, or did you meet people that you could be a group with? Could you speak a little of that? I think the loneliness in itself is almost like another challenge.
Well, the photos day, I think white supremacy itself just community is the antithesis to white supremacy. So I think a lot of people just suffer from loneliness, and even when they are in among people, because we aren't really able to be vulnerable. So I don't loneliness felt profound to me because I didn't talk about my loneliness with others. And yes, part of that was, I think that was also a struggle in my journey about privilege because people had their affinity groups and I felt like I had no one who could really compare to my experiences. But then in my cohort, even though I was the only person with a speech impediment in seminary, we were able to talk about our loneliness, and like I saw my loneliness wasn't that much different. But it also hard because I was misdiagnosed. I really don't know what I suffer from or what the term of my disability. I have thoughts, but so it's hard to find a support group if you don't know what to look for.
Do you see another hand, or can I ask a question?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. I think following up on this question and also about being more welcoming and accepting and less homogenous, you were saying that although your meeting was a friendly and welcoming place that saw past your disability, the fact that they never talked about it, I found a profound, stopped me to start thinking about that. And so when we don't say something that seems obvious to the person with the disability, that it is noticeable, in what ways do you think your community might have both acknowledged the disability, made it welcome and not overlooked, but accepted? What might they have done in retrospect now that you're thinking about being a welcoming community? How might you have advised your friends at your meeting?
I knew someone would ask that, and I don't know. I really don't know, because back at that time, if they would have made a big deal out of it, I would have been less able to handle it, because I wanted to be somewhere else, someone different. So I really don't know what they could have done. Looking back, I wish they would have done something, but it cuts 22. If they did something to accept me, would I vote accepted or vote alienated? So it could have been, many of you know of him or know him personally, but Rex Daniel and I are going to be talking about the subject of making meeting for worship more accessible and doing some writings. And there is something I have been thinking about a little. I will think deeper on, and hopefully I will have some writings, because it is about because sometimes the votes, because I think people will be at different stages of accepting themselves. no matter what their disabilities are or their identity. But I also welcome feedback if other people have thoughts to share them. Yeah.
Well, I had one, and it came out of the group of us who were trying to provide some guidance to local meetings on a variety of issues. And it was like, what do you say to people in the coffee hour? So, for example, if there were someone who clearly had difficulty walking or was in a wheelchair, for example, you might say, could I get you a cup of coffee? I'd really like to have a chance to talk with you, which acknowledges that getting up to the coffee table and navigating a crowd might be less easy for that person, and still says, so I acknowledge this, but that's I see that, and maybe I can be helpful and we can talk. I don't know whether that would actually work or not. I'm sure there'll be plenty of critics who would find something to say would be wrong with that, but it was an idea. So others? Anybody else? Katrina?
This goes back to thinking about the peace work and community building that you've done. And I guess I'm curious how you see your path having formed or shaped in terms of what has it given you access to or opportunity for in terms of being willing to put yourself out there or connect with people who you might otherwise have not felt comfortable or confident making that outreach to. Mike, say, it makes sense.
Can you
Repeat, like rephrase.
rephrase?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having your disability, how has that created opportunities for you in doing work outwardly?
Oh, yeah. I think it has shown me that that oppression is interlinked, and I think it's helped me, and I won't say I am perfect. I've prejudgments, and probably sometimes I feel like I am too judgmental, but I also know that from my experience, your voice impressions could very well be wrong. So I think that has helped me to be willing to get to know people, especially and work past my prejudices and to get to know people more deeply. Yeah.
Anybody else? Yes.
I don't have this question fully formed yet, but something you were saying about being able to bring your imperfection to your community was really striking home with me in the how in our community do we accept the things that maybe aren't our favorite things about ourselves, and maybe we don't want to share them because we want to bring our best selves to the community. And how do we, when we're building community, make space for those, I guess maybe mainstream Christianity would call them sins.
Yeah.
And we don't even have that language to say we love the sinner and not the sin, but we're all carrying that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what my question is, but
Oh, no.
maybe you could respond to it.
Well, I think that is what community is about, being able to be vulnerable and being able to be our true, sometimes awful selves and remove our mask that we tend to wear in the public. And it is a hard process, and I think Quaker meetings are set up to be that vulnerable, intimate space. I think I've wrote about this in an article for Canadian Fin, but I think we need to become intimate with each other. Too often we have allowed intimacy to be talked about only in the romantic sense, but that is only one part of intimacy. I think one of my intimate Quaker worship happened when hurricanes or superstorm Sandy hit. Jen and I were living in Princeton, New Jersey, that got hit pretty hard considering how far inland we were. We were about 50 miles from the ocean. And the meeting house where we worship still did not have electricity almost a week later. And an old meeting house, and it was a cold Sunday. It was the first Sunday in November, so we huddled together by the fire. And there is a meeting that people would sit maybe one or two to benches these size, and we all huddled on 3 benches, and we all were touching shoulder to shoulder. There wasn't a room to fit another person. We were all huddled in, and that was the Sunday I felt the closest to that meeting. And I led that meeting. That there were parts that was a community where I felt like I knew most people. I made really strong connections considering the short time I lived there and the even shorter time I was able to be part of that community. But still, that was the most intimate I have felt with that community. So I think there is also about we worship with people that we don't know, and I think Quaker meeting isn't set up to work in that way. It is set up to be a community. I don't think it will work we aren't a community. I think that is where a lot of the problem within our community today arises from that. At the same time, I don't want to go back to the era where we were so insular and so uniform that to preserve Quakerism, we threw out people who didn't conform. So, but there must be a middle ground because the Quakerism, the only Quakerism movement of the 16 and 1700s, where you have traveling ministers who were able to make a living because people would take on their family while they traveled. Who would farm the fields when you were gone on a gospel, on serving the Lord, are gone. Right now that we have a fin, not even a Quaker watering our garden, we didn't think of asking anyone from our meeting to water our garden. It's true. What does that say about my meeting? I thought I would be too inconveniencing them to ask them to water a couple plants and watch and feed a cat every couple of days. So there are some hard questions we need to ask ourselves. Are we really a community? Are we ready to be vulnerable to make a community? And are some of our meetings too big? Should we go back to having real monthly meetings where worship groups would meet together once a month to do business together, but have smaller groups that met more locally on the other Sundays of the month? So.
Thank you very much, Greg. Appreciate your words and the thoughts that we'll be carrying with us as we ponder them through the week. I know I will. I'm sure the folks in the Continuing Revolution will be pondering them as well. And I hope when you get together to do that writing that some of those ideas will come forward and be brought forward to the Religious Society of Friends in our larger meetings and grow in our organizations.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let's give Greg another round of applause.